learn to improve conversions and generate more leads with the video podcast at marketingoptimization.tv. Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with Alex Designs. I'm your host, Alex Harris, and today we have David from SparkMediaSolutions.com. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Alex. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. We're talking all today about what is hazardous to your social media health. To get started, David, what is your definition of optimization and why is it beneficial?
So I see optimization at two levels. There's the one level of just getting people with the right message at the right time, and that requires you to be able to read people's minds, which is close to impossible. And then, so since that's close to impossible, one of the things that I've been impressed with optimization, and I'm not necessarily defining it, but rather giving probably the best example of it I've ever seen, and of which I'm trying to adopt more of, is a lawyer that I met who does SEM work, search engine marketing work. Or excuse me, he's not a lawyer. He's a guy who works for law firms, small to medium-sized law firms. And his thing is highly qualified leads. You know, his business, he's an independent guy. If he gets 5, 6, 10 clients at a time, that's tons of business. So his leads, what he's asking for is people, one or two people he's asking people to register for his class on how to learn search engine marketing, but you have to be a lawyer and you got to be willing to take the class, which is going to be 2 weeks of emails back and forth. That's a highly qualified lead. Mm-hmm. And he only gets 1 or 2 of those emails a month. And if he gets those people into engagement, 80% of them convert. Mm-hmm. So think about it that way. How many clients do you need, depending on your business? And maybe what you really need to do to optimize is purposely go after the most highly qualified lead. And so that's what I think true optimization is.
I find that really interesting, especially in this space, because more you can niche down to get those qualified leads, because it represents in the legal factor as well, because the legal people do go after high qualified leads in order to get those big cases, because they are multi-million-dollar cases.
Yeah, and the same thing with my business. My business, a single client can bring in a lot of money. I'm not looking to blanket thousands of people and get $5 from each of them. I'm looking for the one person who's really willing to take the time and effort and spend the money. And that requires going after the super highly qualified lead and essentially saying, hey, if you want this information, you need to have all these different criteria and be willing to engage. And so I think that's a really important thing to think about, rather than what are the thousands and thousands of followers I can get and the thousands and thousands of people paying attention. When you look right down to it, is that generating you any revenue? Probably not.
So you've written a great book, Hazardous to Your Social Media Health. 50 previously condoned behaviors we no longer recommend. Let's give people some of those behaviors that you don't recommend when doing social media in general.
Well, there's 50 of them. There's a lot of them. Let me, qualify, a little bit of why this book exists. I wrote an ebook a while ago called How to Trend on Twitter. And one of the pieces of advice, and this is actually one of my very first tips it is the very first tip in my book, which is stop begging, you look pathetic. And one of the tips that I gave in that ebook, How to Trend on Twitter, which was you should just ask for retweets.
Right.
Because there was a time that worked. That really did work, because your followers are pretty much qualified people who like you and want to help you out. But like asking your friends to move, to help you move, you can pretty much only do that once. And when you get old enough, and you can afford it and you're no longer in college, hire some movers. Stop bugging us. So and I realized that this was now bad advice. Something that I advised a few years ago is actually now bad advice. And I'm thinking, there's a lot of stuff people have recommended out there that's bad advice.
Totally.
So I actually reached out to all my social media influencer friends and I just asked them, what's advice you used to recommend or used to adhere to? But you're like, no, you better stop doing this. So the bottom line is, so much of the advice out there, and I'm guilty of it, and you're probably guilty of it too, is here's more work you should be doing. And it's like, yeah, if I had an infinite number of hours in the day, I'd do it all, but we don't. So the goal of this was to try to take things off your plate. So that's what the book is. Read this and you'll have less to do. So stop begging, look pathetic. Another really popular one that I like, or used to be advised was just get your feet wet, jump in. And I had umpteen number of social media experts that just say this is really bad advice because even if you jump in, because of the level of noise going on every social network, you're not going to get any kind of reaction whatsoever. And as a result, you'll be very frustrated and say, yeah, what's the point of this? Let me turn the tables. Do you have a behavior that you used to do and you realize it was stupid and you stopped doing it yourself?
Probably I do, but I don't like to find fault in my own stuff. But let me see. I haven't read the book yet, and I definitely look forward to. But let me see if I can guess some of the bad practices.
Sure.
The one I would definitely recommend you not do anymore, and let's see if it's in the book.
And it has to be something you did adhere to, something you recommended one time or you thought it was a good idea at one time. Because there's a lot of people kind of misread and just started giving bad advice, which was never a good idea at any time.
Right. Automated DMs.
That is on the list, yes.
Yes. Very bad. I mean, horrible. If you automate a DM, I'm inviting you into my room, and all of a sudden you're basically spamming me with prove I'm a real person. If you didn't think I was a real person, then why'd you follow me in the first place?
But it is not only is it bad, but it's such a literally a horrific relationship move, because at the point that you get an auto DM is literally the moment that you have said, I'm following you. So you're like, oh my God, I want to follow Alex. He's really smart because I just read something of his or I heard his podcast. And at that moment you have that very positive message about Alex. Alex slams you with something automated, a DM. And it literally crushes that moment. Totally. That moment of, I feel positive of this person. Now, I'm not saying that you're saying it, but I feel positive about this person, and then they just did something so wrong, and it deflates it. So it not only is it just bad in communications, it's so badly timed, and it ruins something that you had, a very positive thing that you had. It literally blows it.
Yep. What about cross-channel posting the same thing to many different channels?
So cross-channel posting, so two things on the cross-channel posting, and yes, that was on it. A lot of it had to do with using these tools like a Hootsuite or like Deliverit, these tools that automate the cross-posting for you. So not only is it just kind of annoying because you can kind of tell what's going on, but more so, really beyond annoying, it's actually highly technically ineffective.
Right.
Because except for Twitter, which is just a fire hose and accepts everything, both Facebook and LinkedIn essentially grade your content up or down. And if it's not posted directly to LinkedIn and directly to Facebook, they will degrade the value of your content. Yeah. So if you want people to see it, it's essentially hurting you to use one of these social media management tools because they know it's coming from there and they will devalue its appearance in your followers' feed. So it's actually just, whether or not you think it's annoying, it is hurting you because it's just not reaching the organic audience you want it to reach.
Plus, if you're posting your tweets to Facebook, I'm definitely at fault of this. People who are not in my tech industry, they think I'm writing code. They're like @ signs, hashtag this, that. I don't understand any of your stuff. Okay, well, that's because you haven't been on social media long enough yet, but bad practice.
It used to be really obvious before, like Facebook now accepts hashtags, LinkedIn doesn't, or as far as I know, maybe that's changed. But there was a time that Facebook didn't accept hashtags, and it was really obvious when things were being cross-posted that way. And there are these tools within Facebook apps that allow you to automate every single tweet goes to your Facebook feed, which is, beyond annoying, especially if you're a heavy tweeter. But honestly, I don't see a lot of people doing that so much more. Really, the problem is using these social media dashboards to do the cross-posting for you.
So what would be a couple of the other popular ones that maybe I haven't thought about it yet?
Well, the ones that are most controversial are like the ones, stop telling your stories. Now this, and hear me out on this argument. Look around you right this second, and I'm saying this to all the listeners right now. Look around you at all the products that are next to you. And you probably like the products that are next to you now. I'm looking at my desk and I got tons of products here that I like and use. Here's the one thing that's clear about all these products. I like using these products. I'm happy I purchased them. I don't know the story of any single one of these products, and I don't need to know the story of any one of these products to actually enjoy using them.
Okay.
And this is something that's been just hammered down our throat by the social media quote experts that it's all about the story. You got to tell the story. To go, well, actually, no, you don't. A lot of times people just want to consume your product and that's it. And they're happy to use your product and they want to know about announcements of new products or coupons or things like that. But story isn't necessary. So, and it's ironic that I would say something like that because we make our business, my company makes business helping, create stories about other companies. But I know when it's not necessary.
So a lot of people come to me and they want to increase their conversions or track their ROI from social media. Sure. So what would you, before we even get into that, what would you say to someone who's just getting started? They're kind of scared about sharing stuff with their privacy. They're unsure of how much they need to tell. What would you tell to someone who's just getting started with social media?
Well, first of all, anyone who's just getting started, you got a lot of catching up to do. Let's start with that. But then there's also this feeling of there's always somebody bigger, better in your industry that I'm like, oh my God. One of the major problems is the sheer volume of content that's out there. And you can't just create anything and expect a reaction. Here are the essentially the two big things that I've noticed. You have to focus on the headlines of your content, whatever they are. And I learned this, I think it was from Upworthy. They do an exercise where for every single headline they write 25 headlines to come up with that one perfect headline. Huh. And while I haven't actually gone to 25, I usually make it about 15 or 20. I haven't really pushed myself to 25 yet. It is an excellent exercise. And I always do come up with better headlines when I force myself to do that. Because often what we'll do is we'll spend all this time creating the content and then the headline is an afterthought. Well, the problem is if it's an afterthought and you created great content and you write a bad headline, you're not going to get any traffic to your content.
Totally.
So you really have to put a very heavy concerted effort and actually block out time to actually work on the headline of whatever your content is. So that's one really critical issue in any kind of social media engagement. And this also speaks for any like tweets or status updates. Think heavily about those two as well. This really, it's more so now than ever. And here's one really important stat. So from September 13 to now, to March 2014, the number of Facebook pages that we are liking has doubled. And as a result, and a lot of people, and by the way, I'm going to raise my hand. I'm one of the first people to shout out and scream about this and complain. But here's the reality of this. I used to complain that the reason my organic reach of my company page had reduced dramatically from 12% to 6% was because Facebook was throttling. And I actually talk about, let me say, I think I talk about this in the ebook. Facebook was throttling the people's viewing of your content from your Facebook page. But the reality is that there's double the number of pages that people have liked. So now you're competing with twice as much people and their content. So that's why you have half as much organic reach, because the amount of posts that go to the person's page has not doubled. It's exactly the same, and the amount of hours they have in the day to look at it. So you really, really, really have to, everyone talks about quality content. Here's the reason. There's double the content. There's double the volume. People are inundated. Their hours haven't doubled. That's the reason you have to do it. It's not just because it's a nice idea.
And now moving on to conversion or ROI. People worry about spending so much time. I think people are starting to learn that they need to focus on one channel and make that channel successful.
Correct.
But how do you invest the right time to really see the right ROI?
Well, like what I was saying before is like, think of very targeted about who your audience is. Don't get wrapped up in vanity metrics of I have X number of followers on Twitter or X number of followers on Facebook, because those people aren't actually purchasing from you. if you're really trying to generate ROI, you have to create the link, the chain of how you actually get money. How does money end up into your pocket? And then back it out. Is it because people are buying $5 widgets for you? Then, amassing a huge audience through social spheres, through email marketing, that might be possible. And then kind of selling them on the use of this product and showing examples of how somebody else is using the product. If you're in a professional services area, well, then you need to understand how you're getting clients. And then, like the example I gave before, maybe what you should be doing is training your most highly qualified clients. The reason this guy in search engine marketing who only targets lawyers at small firms is successful is he opens up the kimono and completely shows how it's done, but he shows them how it's done and they realize how difficult it is and how much work is involved, and they would be better spending their time being a lawyer, that they just end up hiring them. And that's the thing in terms of, well, maybe not necessarily privacy or maybe telling too much about your business. I argue that you really can't tell too much about your business because it's the telling about your business that proves how valuable that you are. And this goes into the ROI. If you start explaining how, publishing in terms of videos and articles and podcasts and whatnot, to talk about your business and what you do in a very focused way, like you do with regards to conversions, then your audience will know where your value lies. And here's the big thing about social media that nobody gets at all. Social media isn't, I blast out to 1,000, X number of people respond, and then I get dollars, there's my ROI. No. What happens is, the more you do in social media, the more you're seen as an expert. And here's the key thing. Once you're an expert, you can raise your rates. And I don't know, maybe this has been true with you, Alex. Have you, since you started your podcast, been able to raise your rates?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the big secret nobody gets about social media. It's not that you blast 1,000 and X percent come in and you make money off of that. It's, I built up my brand, and before I was a nobody, but now I'm a somebody, and a somebody can claim a bigger price. That is the big thing. That's where the big ROI comes in.
I think you mentioned some really key things right there, because social media, people take on the spray and pray tactics and they don't really think about their core value propositions. How are you really differentiating yourself from the other people in your industry? If you have an e-commerce site, you can niche down, whether you have a fishing site or a sporting site, niche down to geolocation or type of sport that you're doing, and then really talk to that audience individually. You don't need to follow everybody, but find more people to talk to, because that really builds credibility and you become authority in that niche.
Perfect example. So for example, in just a couple of weeks, I'm going up to the state of Washington to speak to the Washington Realtors Association. And these are residential realtors who have very, very little time. They're very busy. And they're like, wow, what's this social media thing? Do I need to be involved and stuff? Well, Twitter would be valuable to them, but they don't need to be communicating to the planet on Twitter. You know what they need to do? They need to find the people in the state of Washington, ideally in their neighborhood, who are looking for homes, who are interested in homes. So, Twitter has the ability for you to, geo-target in a specific area, and they can use a tool like a Hootsuite to just search on terms like housing, mortgage, homes, finding a house, condo, things like that. And when people start tweeting that stuff, they can see the people who are specifically talking about this stuff and respond only to those people. That's how you use social media to geo-target and to, specifically psychographically target and informationally target the people who would be of greatest interest to you.
Now let's talk about some tactics or actionable tips that people can incorporate into their own social media strategies. I think with the release of Gary Vee's book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, all of a sudden everybody is posting photos in social media. And that's great, because Flipboard, or however you want to use it, Facebook Paper, it's great that there's photos out there. But what are some tactics that people can use, related to social media in their own world?
So the reason photos are good is they're like social media candy, and I call them these meme-esque photos, if you will. We've all seen this format. It's a photo of something and then text underneath, which conversely, people just used to write text in a post, but we realize that doesn't give or in a tweet or in a Facebook update or in a blog post, but that doesn't get the attention that a photo does. There's just something that people like the visual and the text together, and it's very shareable for that matter. Well, think about, like, this is one of the things that we're actually doing with our business is we're now combining photos with the videos that we create. So we do these videos where we'll interview a ton of different people, and then we'll edit it up really quick. And each person's giving a very significant quote on a specific topic. So what we're doing is we're taking those quotes and we're making a photo of it, of their image. So I shot a video of you, and I have your image, and I put your quote underneath, and I take that image and I post it up with a link back to the video.
Right.
So if I quote 20 people in a video, I now have 20 photos on top of the video as well. So what this speaks to, and what I say to the audience is, think of the big idea and how you can version it out multiple ways. So if you have some great concept, don't think, I'll make one video on it or I'll write one article on it. It's more of, I have this one idea, and how can I turn that into a video, 20 photos, an infographic, an article, a series of tweets to promote all this content too, and sell that entire concept. Like, so for example, the ebook that we're talking about right now, we are actually, right now my designer is finishing up the presentation we're going to do on it. We're also turning it into an infographic as well. We have each one of these can be versioned out as a separate blog post on its own, and we've also done some guest blogging from this content onto other sites. So we've turned this one big massive piece of content into multiple units of content as well. So that's kind of the big thing I would say is just don't think single one-offs. How can you do multiple things at a time?
I love it. Now, I'm certainly guilty of it. Obviously we can all blame time, but I can take this exact same podcast and break it up into several different episodes, several different pieces of content. I don't have all the time in the world. Unfortunately, I can't do that right now, but it is a great strategy. We talked about so many different things here, and that each could be a separate post or a separate piece of content that I can spread across the web.
Well, but let's take your podcast for a second. So what you could do, and actually there was a guy who was listening to our podcast, which is called The Teardown Show, and what he's got is a company where they purposely pull out snippets of podcasts, like 30 to 60-second cuts of things to kind of promote. Because this is one of the things that's a problem with podcasts is they're not viral. As viral as photos are, podcasts have the opposite problem, actually. Because often people are listening to them in a space where they don't have access to
share them easy,
sharing it as well. Although one of the advantages when you listen on your phone, you can do that as well. But it's not as well built in on a lot of these tools. Some it is, some isn't. But what you could do is you could pull a quote or two and take a screenshot of my face and putting that out and throw that out there. So that's a way you could promote your content as well.
Totally.
One of the things that we were really successful with on one of our podcasts, and again, we did it once and we just haven't repeated it as well. But like one of the people on our show said something very controversial about Clout right when Clout was selling itself, was being bought by Lithium. And we just really milked this very controversial comment about Clout to help promote our podcast episode. So that's another good thing. Like if something really controversial comes up where a lot of people are going to talk about it, it's good to kind of, milk that for what it is. So I'll try to think to say something crazy controversial on your show so you can milk it.
Definitely. Well, maybe we could talk about something controversial here right now. Two more questions. What do you think about the new Twitter redesign?
You know what? It came out today, didn't it?
Yes, it's slowly rolling out throughout the week, but they blog posted it yesterday on Twitter blog.
Well, hold it. Now I haven't even looked at it. Can you give me a second to quickly look at it? I haven't even seen it. Because I know it did come out today, though. I just heard about it. I was just like trying to finish up some other work. But, here's the bottom line. I don't know if anyone cares about the Twitter redesign because how many people look at their raw Twitter feed, period?
Exactly.
You can't. First of all, everyone follows like 1,000 people. So, who has time to look at it? Everyone uses... What I mean, I'm assuming you use some kind of other service to manage your Twitter feed. What do you use?
Either the Mac app or Tweetbot.
Tweetbot. Okay, so yeah, But again, Twitter still gets thousands, millions of people to come to their site directly. It's just, it's a fire hose, of information. Who can handle it? Um, Although they want more people coming, and that's why they're redesigning because they've got advertising, and that's how they're making money.
Yeah, now that they're a public company, they have to figure out a way to actually promote their ads.
But you know what? I'm sure, like over time, Twitter is going to create some type of sort of filtering mechanism in their own service as well, which pretty much their competitors have done. I mean, that's what Facebook and LinkedIn have done, and Google Plus for that matter.
Yeah, I think the big controversy over it was that it's almost exactly the same format as Facebook. But, you really can't, there's not really too many ways to really organize all that information that wouldn't look like Facebook anyway. But that was a really big headlines for the last couple of days.
Well, mine hasn't changed at all. It still looks the same.
Yeah, exactly. So what would you say to someone who has been doing social media for a while, mm-hmm. and they really want to figure out ways to take their efforts to the next level?
Mm-hmm. This, here's what happens. We get stuck in this rut of, but I have to do this. But I have to kind of post to LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter and Google Plus. And I have to do it. You don't. There's the answer. The answer to that, and this goes to my, reading my ebook, is get off the social networks you're not involved in. You can't physically be involved in everything. We don't have the time. We have to do our work. And also look at the social networks that are having the greatest impact. I love Facebook. It's a ton of fun. It does zero for my business. It really does. I mean, it keeps people aware of me and who I am. But I'm now, and I used to be very down on LinkedIn, I'm starting to be far more positive about LinkedIn because really people there are not there to screw around. They're there to actually kind of engage in business.
Yep.
So they're more receptive to very specific business discussions.
Absolutely.
That's a sort of a general thing of don't feel you have to do something. But you got to kind of find what could work for you and also look at the people in your industry and that are doing well and what are they doing. I mean, do they have an email newsletter? I'm a big proponent of the newsletter format. If they're doing that, they should really, really take advantage of it and sort of grow that aspect as well. Also, think about the whole idea of how could you get highly qualified leads? If really all you need is 5 or 6 clients, if that's the way your business works and you're a professional services, how can you find those highly qualified 5 or 6 people and sort of work them really hard and not be this spray and pray and go out to the thousands, but your social media really just goes after a group of a dozen, and that's it. And that can be effective and have effective communications that way. I'm also a big proponent, and the last thing, and this is really the core to our business, is what I talk about is influencer relations through content, or what I call a PR 180. The whole model of it's easier to get people to connect with you, influencers, your marketers connect with you if you reach out and and interview them first. So a lot of the stuff we do for our clients is not pitching, because we're not a PR firm. We don't pitch, our client. What we do is if our client's in a specific space like security, we'll just go out and find a bunch of influencers in the security space and interview them.
I love it. Treat business relationships like personal relationships.
Well, I mean, it's like, first of all, I mean, if someone comes up to you and says, will you watch this 10-minute demo of our company, and that's your first communications with them, my inbox is flooded with that kind of crap.
Right.
And you delete every single one of them. And it is a total spray and pray model. And I wrote an article about this. I said that PR pitches are like requests for anonymous sex. If you post something on Craigslist saying who wants to have sex, it's going to go out to thousands of people. By the sheer number of odds, a couple of people are going to come back and say, sure, I'd like to have sex with you. But, it's probably not going to be the quality person you want to have sex with. And that's pretty much the same model with PR. They send it out to thousands of people. Yes, a couple of people are going to come back and say, yes, I'd like to see a demo of your product. But it's not going to be the Wall Street Journal, And similarly, it's not going to be a Playboy Playmate. So you really, it'd be better to interview the Playboy Playmate of how she got involved. It'd be better to interview the person, and now you actually have a relationship with that person, and it might be a little bit easier if you want to actually have sex with her to begin by showing that you care about her first. And that's what we learned in dating in high school. Talk about her first rather than boasting about yourself.
Totally. Well, I think you really nailed it. And you explain it in the story that you wrote about the PR 180, how telling someone else's story really benefits you. And that's really actually the way I kind of handle a lot of things I do on Twitter.
It's what you're doing with this podcast right exactly. now.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Awesome. Well, let's close by telling people how they can find out more about your podcast at teardownshow.com and find out more about you.
So teardownshow.com is just a show where we interview people about their expertise, and I co-host it with an analyst from Seattle by the name of Michael Wolf. And you can find out about me from my business site, sparkmediasolutions.com. Our blog is sparkminute.com as well. And you can follow me on Twitter at dspark, or I very happily accept emails as well. And that's David at sparkmediasolutions.com. Or if you forget that, just you'll find the contact info on our sites.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for your time, David.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you for watching the Marketing Optimization Podcast with Alex Designs. Please remember to subscribe to all of the videos in my YouTube channel. Thank you.